Thanks for joining me for another video. So I feel like this is a good time because I've had quite a few visions of, beings and Jesus and, things coming through over the last few months, okay? You, as I've said before, we're going through a lot of planetary changes at the moment, and that is not lost on, beings on the other side, okay? And obviously God, all that is source, has been encouraging us to think about the survival and well-being of one another, and to work together, and beings on the other side, other types of beings, angels, and other, loved ones, they've all been coming through and sharing a very similar message, okay? But who Jesus has been, I've been working a lot with Jesus, or just seeking out his guidance a lot over the last few months, because of the fact that some of the things that I've been going through have been so immensely challenging. And I've been really grateful, and again, other people and beings have had input in this as well, okay? But Jesus, God bless him, did say to me, because he came through to me a few months ago, and said to me that he's happy for people to seek him out and for support at this time, okay? He's happy for people to seek him out for support. Again, I felt quite protective over him, and I still do, and as I do with like pretty much anybody who would have been in that position, in terms of humanizing things, okay? Because Jesus went through a lot when he was alive on this planet, in his life on this planet. And, I, in that sense, like, I feel, again, just, don't put too much on him, and also, try and go within yourself and seek for yourself as well. But he has said, if people want to, go through me to find God, to find truth, that you can, that's fine, okay? That's fine. You can do that. You can do that. Like just say to people it's okay that they can do that, okay? And for me, that was a bit of a turning point, because prior to that, again, and I still do feel this way, because I think we should feel the right way to feel, I think, about what happened to Jesus and what's happened to many people over the course of time who have lost their lives or had their lives destroyed because of things they know or things they've tried to bring to light. Again, the idea that really we should be looking at it as a human rights issue, okay? Or they shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be glorifying, the fact that people lose their lives over these things, okay? We should be looking at it more like, oh gosh, like this shouldn't be happening to people. Is it, like Jesus shouldn't have died the way he died. But at the same time, things only happened the way they could have happened. And obviously there is like there's a grace and acceptance that sort of went along with that, and unconditional love. And that's one of the biggest teachings of that, is the idea of unconditional love and how freeing it can be, even in your darkest moments. And experiencing the love of God as sort of like a way to sort of carry oneself over from immense challenges. He obviously brought that lesson to a lot of people. And so, but nonetheless, like I said, I really still feel, obviously, that like we should be thinking more along as well. Also keep in mind, and people do think about Jesus' suffering, okay? They do think about what he went through. But I think, again, we should, again, it shouldn't be the norm. Again, and what happened to Jesus happened, okay? But what happened to other people who you might not even heard of, okay? That, who've lost their lives because of what they know, or had their lives destroyed, quality of life compromised. It's happening as we speak to many, many people who you may know or may not know. Again, it shouldn't be that there is such a huge premium on the disclosure of truth, you know, and it shouldn't be that like people have to lose their lives or have their lives destroyed in the process of sharing these things. This should be something that we're working like to eradicate, you know, or like not, there should be a dynamic that we should be dissolving, okay, basically. You know, but yeah, so okay, so Jesus be in these beings, okay. Right, so in terms of what I've had visions basically of Jesus as well on, so Jesus, when he's come through to me, has also come through with what you would call blue beings, okay? Blue beings, right. So blue beings can be, you know, found in the Bhagavad Gita, so to speak, you know, not many people have seen them. They I've had visions of them, okay? But I also, okay, have had visions of what some people would call Arcturians, okay? You know, I don't believe they necessarily come from Arcturus myself, but but people associate these beings with Arcturus, or they're called Arcturians. You know, there's a lot in UAP law that I don't really think is true, okay, but that's nothing new. It's part of what is part of the whole the dynamic, you know, the whole sort of like the situation that we're in that sense, like that we have all these different narratives and ways and beings that, you know, things that are just not true, okay. And so yeah, but anyway, it's because and for good reason, like there's stories behind everything, and the, you know, everything serves and everything has a story, and that's what's most important, is to understand why this is so, okay. Because understanding why this is so is a way to truth, like it's a way to truth and freedom as well, for everybody. And so I think so anyway, but anyway, never mind that. So Jesus comes through, says, come through to me. Now, they, like, again, Arcturians, okay. So what you would call Arcturians, okay. But again, I don't believe they're from Arcturus, okay. I think they're from another plane of reality. I don't think they're from this plane, okay. As I do feel about other beings as well involved with the phenomenon, I don't believe they're from this plane, okay. And so, and this is based on, again, first-hand experience. But again, I'm happy to be wrong about, there are lots of things I don't know, and I'm happy to be wrong about, you know, whatever. If something comes out to be wrong, that's fine. And so Jesus has come through, and Jesus also comes through as Sanander. So they tell me that his name is also Sanander. This is not new. Like, there are other people who've said this, that channeled that Jesus also has the other name of Sanander as well, okay? And Jesus, I was shown a vision of Jesus last week, and he was on this other world, and it was really amazing, actually. He was on this other plane of reality, and he was sat, I don't know if on a rock or something, on a side of a hill, or some sort of elevation anyway. And he was sat, and he was sort of like, so you can sort of imagine, so we got like a picture, and he's to the left, in the bottom left, okay, and he sort of, you know, sat there. And then, but in the background, you've got flying saucers, you've got like these beings, these Arcturians, whatever you want to call them, and they're all sort of, you know, some of them are walking around. And like I said, you've got flying saucers and so on, and you know, it was a really interesting image, and it was lovely because I had a vision afterwards, because I tried to give room for things to be confirmed. Okay, I tried to give leave room for things to be confirmed. Okay, and I had a beautiful vision afterwards, or a beautiful experience, where I literally felt myself on this plane of reality, this strata. And I could feel almost feel the air, just feel the energy of it, and it was a wonderful experience, and I knew that it was a real place, okay, like it was a real place that I saw Jesus on. The most important thing about this is that the intuition that I had, that Jesus remains very close to, basically has come down, or is very close to this plane, okay? As like, and I think he has. I mean, I don't know if he's ever really gone. I know, you know, there's an aspect of him, okay, or there's a sort of a representation of him, or you know, and it's still him, okay, but he's very close to this plane right now, okay, and there are other beings that are doing this as well. It's obviously there are other beings that I've come into contact with. You know, I've had interventions from Ananda Maima. I've had, you know, I've even seen Yogananda. You know, Ramdas, I've as well has come through again. You know, this is just because, like I said, it's grace. Okay, it's got nothing to do with merit. It's about grace. Okay, it's because I've really needed that support, and it is about love in the end. Okay, it's not about anything to do with people, someone being more spiritually or whatever. It is about love and grace, and like a great unfolding and intersecting. Okay, as well, and so. I think, so anyway, I believe that Jesus is very close to this plane at the moment. He wants to be available to people. He wants to be of service to humanity at this time. That's my feeling. I feel like God sent him down, and that was the intuition that I received, is that God, all that is source, has sent him down, or like he has been, again, almost like station, or like just he's just sort of there again, literally from God, like, you know, God, you know, there to like at this time to and don't think of this along religious lines, because it isn't, but you know, to be again there for people if they need his support, if they need spiritual guidance, or they need love and compassion and great, like if they need that, okay, so he's there. Again, it's not about grand, you know, oh look at me, I'm the Messiah, all this sort of thing. He's not doing it out of that. It's literally because they know that we're going through tremendous planetary changes at the moment, okay, and also a lot of consciousness changes as well, as a result, and just the whole thing is happening in synchronistically and in tandem, and they want to help us. They want to help us through this difficult time, okay. So yeah, so I saw, and so yeah, so Jesus, I had that vision of him feeling that he was sent down by God, that he was, you know, that he was like, he would, again, that this was all that is God's source, just saying, you know, trying to, again, you know, and, you know, when you say, you know, again, I mean, well, what you and how you interpret that is up to you, okay? But my feeling is, like I said, like literally, like like again, and other beings, Celestine, angels, you know, soul friends, all sorts of people are trying to get through to us, or just be of support in lots of different ways. They want to get messages through. They want to try and encourage change and be supportive towards us. But, you know, again, they're not trying to, they also respect, you know, that people, you know, divine unfolding and all these things, and, you know, and things can only happen the way they happen, and so on and so forth. And, you know, they respect that. They know this very intuitively, okay? But they also know that when to come in at the right times. And, you know, because we're going through, one of the prevailing messages is to share one of unity consciousness, of that we are infinite, that we are one, that we are, you know, 888 comes through a lot to me, reminding us that we are one, okay, and that we are infinite, we are eternal, we are children, you know, we again, unity consciousness, and that we are not our bodies, we are souls, we are eternal children of God, all that is, okay. Some people think that what we are facing, and I don't want people to be, sorry, forgive me, I'm going to wrap this up in a minute, but I don't, you know, some people think that we are heading into apocalyptic times, okay, that we're heading into the apocalypse, and again, don't think that, don't get panic when I say that, okay? You know, some people think that these are very, like, these are basically biblical times, okay? And yes, we are facing tremendous changes. There is a big spiritual fight, really, so to speak, taking place as well. That makes it sound, I don't believe in looking at things as good and evil, okay? I believe in looking at things in a nuanced way, all right? That's my approach to things. But again, there is a bit of a tug of war taking place in terms of what narratives prevail, what choices we make, you know, and there are different energies and forces pulling us in different directions, okay? So we are at a bit of a crossroads, and this is why it's so important that we seek support and we are as conscious as possible at this time on this planet. You know, because again, there are different influences and a lot of them are very subtle and a lot of people don't know about them, you know, and there are things obviously that I don't know as well that are happening. But people's stories matter. And, you know, again, let's not think about things goody. That's not the way they're looking at it. They're just trying to be of service and be, you know, available to us. You know, there's an awareness, like I said, that we're going through planetary changes. Again, no panic. The word apocalypse makes it sound as if it's going to be completely the end of the world. And whilst we will go through planetary changes, most likely, you know, it's not going to be the end of humanity. I've been shown that many times. Or, you know, I've been told to tell people that it's not the end, okay? That humanity will survive, whatever happens. And, you know, again, the more prepared we are, the more guaranteed that will be, the more assured we can be of that. And this is why we've got to try and involve people, you know, as much as we can. Raise awareness of these things as much as we can, okay? You know, make this a sort of a collaborative effort between all of us, okay? You know, anyway, the other thing is that this morning, and I'm going to leave it up, end of this video afterwards, but this morning I had a vision of a being, last night, I had a vision of a being, very quick vision of a being that had a very interesting, like a very large head. It wasn't like a typical grey, not a grey that I've seen before. Okay, it had a very large head, and you know, God bless it, sort of very interesting, like very interesting, like proportions, like its head, very sort of like not like a typical grey, but still quite large, you know. I've drawn a little image of it, which I'll share. But as it came in, it came in with the, and I don't know if this was a samskara or thought, because this, okay, I don't know whether or not this being is what you would call an Arcturian, okay? Or if it's part of the phenomenon. Intuitively, I feel like it's more likely to be what you would call maybe an Arcturian, okay? I have to say, what's really incredible about that vision I had is that it's the being was so real, like so vivid, like a real, so real, okay, so vivid. You know, how can I say it? Like, I felt like I was really looking at a genuine, how can I say it? Like a being that was genuinely, tangibly likely from like another planet or something like that, okay? A being that really looked like a being that really looked like it belonged to another planet, okay? Or like again, it didn't feel synthetic. It didn't feel like I was looking at like an AI generated image or anything, or, you know, it felt like I was looking at a being that was probably could be physical, okay, but was actually obviously, you know, in my appearing in my sort of third eye or consciousness, but could be physical, okay. It looked very real, okay, is what I'm saying. Not a being that I looked at and thought, you know, you've been, you know, it looked sort of too ethereal or anything like that, okay? And more so really because of the proportions of its head. It had some interesting features, like in a sense, some indent, again, I don't want to use some sort of like curvatures of its head, and it was quite again, quite interesting to look at in that sense. I only I saw it for a brief moment, but again, it just, and I did it again, it just had this very clear sort of feeling that, along with it, that it was a real being. But okay, what came through that again as well is that the possibility that this is a being, that this type of being that hangs out with Jesus, that Jesus comes through with, okay? They also could be beings that other people have channeled, potentially the likes of Daryl Anchor, I think, okay? But again, a being nonetheless that doesn't look cartoonish in any way, okay? Not cartoonish. Very, like, literally, I feel like I could go to another planet and I would see, I know, like, it's the sort of being very humanoid, but looks like, again, very easily something, you wouldn't feel like, oh gosh, you wouldn't second guess. If you saw if you saw this being, you wouldn't question. You would think, okay, well, that's reasonable, okay, like, this isn't, again, not cartoonish, or not, this feels like I'm possibly looking at something that is not human, but yet also, again, probably like within the sort of a realistic representation of what could be out there in terms of, or on another plane in terms of non-human intelligence, so but again, what came through with that, and I have to keep an open mind about this, because it could still be that this being is part of the phenomenon, but what came through as I saw this being was about Jesus and blue beings coming through with him, okay? Now, I don't know, I have to say, I'm not 100% sure if that's really who this being was. The reason why I say that is because what tends to happen, how consciousness seems to work, is that when things come through to you, visions, okay, a samskara comes through at the same time, okay? So a samskara is a thought form. What happens is, as that vision pushes into your awareness, what also gets triggered, like on a tripwire, a consciousness tripwire, is the equivalent samskara thought form. And again, it might not be something that relates to, okay, something similar that you have in your awareness gets brought into that. It might not be an accurate representation of what's actually happening in that moment, but it'll come through. Like, for instance, I'm going to try and make this as clear as possible. In my awareness is the fact that blue beings come through with Jesus. This being came through like in a flash, like in a vision, okay? Because I'd seen the vision of Jesus on that plane with those beings before, okay, and that being looks very similar to the beings that I saw on that plane with Jesus. What my consciousness did was trip a wire, so a wire was tripped, and that basically a samskara related to seeing Jesus with these beings was also tripped, okay? So whether or not that was an accurate sort of interpretation, or whether or not I literally was seeing a being that was in that vision, okay, or what happened was the equivalent, like my mind pulled something, again, like I said, it's like pulling a reference book from a library in your consciousness, did that, and pulled that in, and I interpreted it as such. That is something that I'm not sure about. I'm hoping to get some clarity on, which I think people, I'm hoping to get to that to happen over the, whenever it happens, I'll let you know if it does. But again, that's what seems to happen. This is why, samskaras are very often, whilst they are important, because they tell stories and they shape our experience in our lives. Like I said, if you actually observe them, sometimes you can misinterpret things because of that it doesn't really, they're not necessarily an accurate reflection of what's happening in that moment. But we'll find, well, you know, nonetheless, if it transpires that that's the case, then I will let you know, and update you if I get more information about what type of being that was. Okay. So is there anything else to say? Yeah, Jesus is about, and, you know, so reach out, and other beings are too. Reach out for that love and support. Reach out for that grace, that compassion, that spiritual guidance. You know, reach out for God as well. Go within, search your consciousness. Again, this is not a religious message. Okay, all right, no, not at all in any way. This is for everybody. Okay, I don't, you know, this is not about, there's no dogma attached to this. It's really about love. Okay, it's really all about love. All right, and that's really what it is. Okay. And so, you know, it's not about, you know, love is the most important thing. Okay, it really is the most important thing. You know, but above all things, love is most important, and more than knowing, more than anything, is love. All right. And we all know that, you know, we all know that, you know, but yeah, that's what they're here for. You know, they're here to help us through these difficulties and offer their support and encouragement. So thank you so much for watching this video, and take care.